Hi, I'm Junia. For years, I was the one who fixed every broken thing, paid every overdue bill, and showed up before anyone else, like clockwork. My family called it being dependable. I called it love. Then one day, my mom looked at me in front of everyone and said, "You're just it," before handing my brother the $1.9 million lake house I'd helped pay for. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing it wasn't sudden. It had been building quietly for years, and I never saw it coming. Or did I? I arrived early. That's just what I do. Early, helpful, invisible. The valet didn't even ask my name this time. He just held the door open with a stiff nod, the kind you give someone who looks familiar but doesn't matter. I stepped inside the banquet hall Vera rented for her 68th. It was elegant in a Pinterest board meets Midwestern budgeting kind of way. White tablecloths, plastic floral centerpieces, string lights pretending to be delicate. In my hand was a small bouquet, calla lilies, her favorite. I had it wrapped in linen ribbon, nothing flashy but thoughtful. I handed it to the hostess at the front. She barely glanced at it before setting it on a cluttered gift table next to a blender box still in its Target bag. I asked where I was sitting. She scanned the guest list, then scanned again. "I don't see a Junia?" Her voice lifted at the end like a question, even though she already decided the answer. "That's me," I said quietly. "Oh, okay, well, you can take one of the seats near the back. We've got overflow just by the kitchen doors." She gestured to a folding chair next to a plastic high chair and a stack of unused drink trays. I smiled, not because it was okay, but because it wasn't worth explaining why it wasn't. I walked past tables where everyone else had name cards. Callista had one with gold foil lettering. Even Uncle Dean, who once got banned from Vera's house for bringing weed brownies, had a reserved seat near the cake table. I sat where they told me, my back to the main stage, my view a slow swinging kitchen door, the scent of chafing dish gravy mixed with lemon-scented cleaner. A waitress dropped a pitcher of iced tea on the tray next to me and said, "Hey, do you know how to fix the Wi-Fi? Someone said you're the tech person?" Of course. I murmured something about needing to check the router and opened my phone just to pretend I was busy. I wasn't going to fix anything tonight. Not their Wi-Fi, not their family, not myself. By the time everyone had arrived, the hall had filled with that layered hum of forced celebration, people laughing too loudly, hugging for too long. I noticed my mother, Vera, in her usual baby pink blazer, her lipstick a touch too red, smiling for photos like a pageant winner. She looked radiant, really, like someone who knew she was still the center of gravity, even if the world had moved on. Dinner was served. I ate slowly, methodically. The roast was dry. The mashed potatoes were gritty. But I chewed and smiled and nodded when someone passed me the salt. Then Larson stood. He didn't tap his glass. He didn't need to. He had that confidence that men get when they've been praised their entire lives for showing up. He lifted his beer and said, "To Mom, the queen of this family, without her, none of this would run right." A chorus of "Hear, hear" followed. "And let's not forget," he continued, "if anything goes haywire, streaming, plumbing, coffee maker, security cams, we've got our very own in-house tech support." He looked directly at me. "She's just the IT girl after all." The room laughed. Not politely, not nervously, like they'd all been waiting to laugh at that. And then Mom chimed in, not missing a beat. "Well, she doesn't have kids. She's always available." It landed like a slap, even though she said it like a compliment. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I simply picked up my wine glass and took a slow sip. The thing about being erased for long enough is, you learn how to make your silence loud. I stared at my plate and tried to remember the last time my name had been mentioned in a toast, or a thank you card, or even in passing that didn't include the phrase, "Can you just—" Callista leaned into Vera's shoulder and whispered something. They laughed again. That laugh, that familiar practice sound of shared secrets and soft betrayal. My mind drifted. I remembered the time I paid out of pocket for Mom's dental implants when insurance refused coverage. No one knew. Or maybe they did. They just didn't think it mattered. I remembered installing the smart TV system so Dad could stream his baseball games, only to come home at Christmas and find out I wasn't invited to the cousin's dinner. I remembered sleeping on a couch next to the kitchen one Christmas Eve because a neighbor didn't have anyone else and needed the guest room more. I remembered the time I drove 6 hours during a snowstorm to help Larson reset his Wi-Fi because his toddler couldn't watch cartoons. He didn't say thank you, just handed me a coffee and said, "Figured you'd know what to do." I finished my wine. I didn't come here for war, but the moment had declared it anyway. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate, pushed my chair back slowly, and when Vera finally looked up, I smiled. "I'm so glad you have everything figured out," I said. My voice was even, soft, but it carried. "I'll just take what's mine." Nobody responded. Not because they were stunned, but because they weren't sure what I meant. I wasn't sure either, not yet. But something had shifted. I gave a nod to the server refilling glasses at the next table. She nodded back, probably thought I was stepping out to take a call. I walked toward the door, not fast, not slow, just done. The hallway outside was quiet. My heels clicked against the floor. I passed the gift table without stopping. The bouquet I brought was half hidden behind a wrapped crock-pot. Outside, the sky had turned a deep gold. The lake shimmered in the distance. I got into my car, pulled the door shut, and sat in silence for a moment. The laughter from inside echoed faintly through the glass, but I wasn't listening anymore. I didn't sleep much the week after the birthday dinner. The laughter lingered in my chest longer than I cared to admit, less like a memory, more like a bruise. Each time I tried to let it go, it replayed again, clearer, sharper, and always ending on Mom's voice. She doesn't have kids. She's always available. On Sunday morning, I drove back to Duluth. Again. It wasn't an invitation so much as an expectation. "We're just having a little get-together. Don't overthink it," Vera had texted me. No context, no tone, just a command wrapped in passive suggestion. I pulled into their driveway a little after 10. The house looked exactly the same as it always did. Neat flower beds, wind chimes, 2 ceramic bunnies by the front steps. Familiar and sterile, like walking into a carefully curated family photo where I was always somewhere just out of frame. Larson's car was already there. Of course it was. When I stepped inside, I was hit with the smell of waffles and coffee, Mom's homemade hospitality on full display. She was in her element, fluttering around in a soft blue cardigan, acting like this was a normal Sunday. She barely glanced at me. "Oh good, you're here," she said, handing me a napkin. "Can you help set the table?" I wanted to say no, but I didn't. I took the napkins and started folding. Larson was camped out on the couch, shoes off, socks halfway pulled down, flipping through sports updates on his phone. Callista sat at the breakfast bar, sipping coffee like she lived there. No one asked how my drive was. Once everything was in place, Mom brought out a manila folder. She held it like it was sacred. "I just want to be organized," she said, smiling that tight-lipped way she does when she's about to say something final. "You know, so no one gets blindsided in the future." She opened the folder and laid the pages neatly on the dining table. "These are just drafts," she added, as if that made it casual. "Nothing final. I just thought it was time we had some clarity." There were 3 printed documents. The first one had a header, Last Will and Testament, Draft. I sat down slowly, my eyes scanning the first page. Larson was listed right there, sole beneficiary of the Lakehouse property. No surprise from him. He was sipping his orange juice like someone reading the morning paper. I turned the page. My name appeared near the bottom, under a section labeled Other Support. My role was described as Occasional Financial Assistance, written in light pencil and crossed out with a thin black pen. My fingers paused on the edge of the page. The crossout wasn't a mistake. It was clean, intentional. Not even an attempt to erase. It was meant to be seen. I glanced up. Vera was pouring syrup. "Honey, you don't even live here anymore," she said, noticing my expression. "It makes sense. Larson's family needs roots. And you, well, you're always traveling." Busy. Busy. The word landed flat. I wasn't traveling. I was paying for their heating bill when the boiler broke. I was sending birthday money to her grandkids when Larson forgot. I was flying back for her medical appointments. I wasn't busy. I was just usefully distant. I folded the paper and pushed it gently back toward her. Of course, I said. We moved on like it didn't happen. No one asked me if I had thoughts. No one offered to adjust the draft. No one said thank you for anything I'd done. Mom started opening gifts next. She made a show of each one, oohing and aahing at bath bombs, kitchen towels, a cookbook from someone at church. Then came Callista's gift, a boxed blender, not high-end, something she likely grabbed from a clearance aisle on her way over. Mom lit up like it was a diamond necklace. "Oh, she always knows what I need," she exclaimed, pulling out the instruction manual like it was sacred text. "It's just perfect." Callista beamed. Larson gave her a small side hug. My gift sat unopened, tucked behind a vase of lilies. I had brought a rare tea set, handcrafted, one of a kind, shipped from a small maker in Oregon. I'd wrapped it in ivory paper, tied it with silver twine, and included a card I spent an hour handwriting. Mom finally picked it up, but didn't look at the tag. She peeled back the paper, studied the elegant wooden box, then opened it with polite curiosity. "This one didn't come with a note," she said, setting it aside. "Probably from one of your coworkers, Junia?" Callista laughed softly. Larson didn't even glance my way. I sat still, spine straight, hands folded. I counted to 3 in my head, then reached for my purse. I opened it, pulled out a folded receipt with my signature and the timestamp from the boutique. I laid it gently on the table. "Actually," I said, voice calm, "that was from me. The tea set." Vera blinked. Callista looked down at her coffee. Larson refreshed his phone screen again. No one said anything. No apology. No thank you. Just silence so thick you could have spooned it into a glass. I pushed back my chair. "I have to head out," I said, not waiting for permission. Vera stood. "Already? We haven't even had dessert." I smiled. Not with my mouth, just with the practiced kindness women are trained to wear like armor. "Maybe next time." I walked toward the door. Halfway down the hallway, I heard Mom call out, "Drive safe, sweetheart." I didn't answer. Once I reached the car, I dropped into the seat and exhaled like I hadn't breathed properly in hours. The box with the real estate papers still lingered in my head. My name, crossed out like a typo. As I backed out of the driveway, I realized something important. This wasn't rage yet. It was recognition. By the time I pulled into my driveway in Minneapolis, it was nearly dusk. I sat in the car for a long while before stepping inside, hands still clenched, mind replaying that moment with the receipt on the table. It hadn't been a confrontation, not really, but something cracked open in me that day. Not rage, not grief, something quieter, sharper. After feeding the cat and setting a kettle on the stove, I tried to distract myself. I'd told myself I'd clean up my desktop this weekend anyway. Too many duplicate files, random screenshots, receipts. It felt like a small, controllable task, something that didn't require emotional bandwidth, something that didn't ask anything of me. I opened my laptop and clicked into my photo folders. Most people have hundreds of pictures of themselves. Me? I'm usually behind the camera, the one holding the phone, capturing smiles I'm never part of, cropping myself out because I wasn't in focus anyway. Still, I scrolled. The last picture I found of me and my mom was from 2016. We were at a Thanksgiving potluck. Vera had asked me to come early to help with the turkey. Callista arrived 2 hours later with store-bought pie and still got credit for the table setting. In the photo, I was mid-blink, standing off to the side, partially blocked by the serving dish. The lighting was terrible, my posture stiff, but at least I was there. Present. Documented. I clicked into the family drive, an online folder we all shared, or at least I thought we did. There was a subfolder called Vera's 68th. I opened it. There were 25 photos uploaded. Most featured Callista and Larson, arms around Vera, toasts, table shots. The ones where I remembered standing next to Mom, I wasn't there. My stomach tightened. I went back and forth between the images, my memory screaming that I was there, right there, next to her during the cake cutting. I remembered holding the lighter for the candles. In the photo, it was Callista holding the lighter, not me. I paused, checked the file info. Edited 2 weeks ago. By Callista. I let the silence wrap around me like a tight wool blanket. Not warm, just heavy. I wasn't just invisible. I was being removed, erased. A knock at the window startled me. Just the neighbor's kid bouncing a basketball in the shared driveway. I gave him a small wave and closed my laptop, hands trembling. I didn't cry. I just sat there, breathing slow, trying to make sense of the shape of my life and how often it seemed to be rewritten without me. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing in bed, my pillow too hot, the air too still. So I got up, padded to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat down again in front of my computer. Something pulled at me. A moment, a memory. Mother's Day last year. We'd all gone out for brunch. Vera had made a reservation at that overpriced bistro near the river, the kind of place that served eggs on slate slabs and called toast artisanal. I had arrived early. Again, helped rearrange chairs so the stroller fit, took photos of everyone, poured coffee, smiled. At one point, I'd asked her, "Hey, can we get a picture? Just you and me?" She'd glanced at me, then at Callista, bouncing the baby on her lap, and said, "We've got so many pictures already, don't we? Let the young moms have their moment." I had smiled, pretended it didn't sting. But now that moment returned with razor-sharp clarity, because she wasn't just dismissing a photo, she was dismissing me. I pushed away from the desk, went to the hallway closet, and reached for the old cedar box I kept tucked in the back. The lid creaked like an old knee as I opened it. Inside, scraps of memory, cards I'd made as a kid, programs from school plays, a worn-out ribbon from a state fair pie contest I'd entered at 15, a few of Dad's old baseball cards he let me borrow but never asked back for, and a stack of Polaroids. I flipped through them carefully. Most were faded, corners curled. I found one from a family picnic at the Lakehouse when I was maybe 9 or 10. Larson was dead center, mid-jump off the dock, arms out like a superhero. Vera stood nearby, holding a tray of sandwiches. I was off to the side, half in the frame, holding a beach towel, grinning. But someone had taken a pen and scratched a line across my face. One clean, dark stroke. Not scribbled, not accidental. Deliberate. I held that photo for a long time. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because it was the kind of hurt that had layered itself over years, the kind of hurt that had settled in like a quiet tenant and rearranged all the furniture. I put the photo back, closed the box, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something shift. Not in my family, not in Vera, but in me. They weren't just excluding me now, they never included me. Not really. That realization wasn't loud or violent. It came like the sound of a faucet that's been dripping for too long, and one day, you finally decide to fix it. That night, I opened a blank spreadsheet, not for revenge, for records. I started with the gift receipt I'd printed. Then I logged the cost of Larson's wedding cake I covered, the year I paid for Mom's blood work, the security system I installed, the groceries for the 4th of July party. Because if I was going to be written out, I was going to at least write myself down. 2 nights later, I was back in Duluth. Again. This time, it was for Vera and Milton's 40th wedding anniversary. They'd rented out the fellowship hall behind the church, modest by Vera's standards, but still big enough for round tables draped in dusty mauve linens, a buffet line of reheated casseroles, and a microphone she'd insisted didn't work, though she'd tested it 6 times that morning. I had taken 2 hours the night before to write a short, warm speech. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would cause a scene. Just enough to say I was proud of their 40 years together, and that while I may not have a husband of my own, I respected what they'd built. I even printed it on cardstock. I arrived early, like always. The parking lot wasn't full yet, just a few cars scattered near the entrance. I carried in a small box with their gift, a restored photo of their wedding day, blown up and framed. I'd paid extra for the restoration. Had it shipped from New York. But I didn't bring it to brag. I brought it because I thought it mattered. Inside, Vera was already orchestrating the placement of centerpieces. She looked up, smiled. "Oh good, Junia, you're here. Can you help me with the name cards?" She handed me a stack without asking. I nodded because what else was there to do? As we worked, she glanced at the manila folder in her hands. "By the way," she said, almost casually, "we finalized the speaker list. Just the immediate family, Larson, Callista, and Milton. You understand? She didn't look at me when she said it. I didn't respond right away. I just folded my speech and slid it into my purse, next to my car keys. The room filled slowly. The church ladies came with their jello molds. The cousins who never RSVP'd showed up anyway. Larson and Callista arrived late, but got ushered straight to the head table. I was seated with the overflow near the dessert station and the coffee urn that wouldn't stop dripping. Larson gave his speech first. Talked about how much their marriage taught him about sticking through hard times, and how Mom and Dad showed us what commitment really looks like. He didn't mention that Mom once threatened to leave Dad because he forgot her birthday, or that their idea of sticking through meant silence over solutions. Then Callista stood. She gushed about how blessed she was to marry into such a grounded family, and how grateful she was for Vera's guidance. "You helped me become the woman I am today," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. People clapped. Someone teared up. Milton said a few words too, mostly mumbled thanks, and a nod to the chicken casserole. My name was never mentioned, not once. I clapped, though, polite, on time, with hands that didn't shake. Later that night, back in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed and took off my earrings one by one. I laid them on the nightstand next to the folded speech I never gave. I stared at that speech a long while, not because I was sad it wasn't read, but because I knew it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. They never listened. Not really. So I opened my laptop, not to scroll, not to shop, but to work. I created a new spreadsheet. Title: Family Support Records. I didn't know what drove me to do it right then. Maybe I was tired of not having proof, of living in the gray space between being useful and being disposable. Line by line, I began typing. July 2016. Paid $2,300 for new dock at Lakehouse. Larson couldn't swing the repair cost. Novi 2017. $600 for mom's dental surgery copay. Insurance didn't cover full procedure. March 2018. $4,950. Smart security system installed at Cray residence. April 2019. $1,750 for Larson's urgent auto repair. Money wired same day. Aug 2020. $3,200. Church donation in Vera's name for roof fund. Deck 2021. $480. Christmas gift fund for Vera's grandkids. Larson had a tight year. I cross-checked each amount with my credit card statements. Some of the dates made me stop and remember things I didn't want to revisit, like the year they told me not to come to Thanksgiving because it would be too crowded, and then posted a family photo with Callista's sister in my old seat. I kept typing. The total rose with each row. 5 digits. Then 6. It wasn't the money. It was what it stood for. I whispered, barely audible. I was the infrastructure. Because that's exactly what I'd been. I had patched the leaks, paid the bills, made the calls, fixed the tech, booked the hotels, ordered the cakes, designed the flyers, wired the money, showed up early, stayed late. And never, once, was I part of the blueprint. 2 hours passed. The clock on the wall said 1:14 a.m. I attached PDF receipts, old invoices, emails confirming shipping. I even added photos of the work I'd done, pictures I'd taken to update them, never shared publicly. In the notes column next to each line I wrote, "Not reimbursed, not acknowledged, not included." By the time I finished, the total was $143,700 what? That number stared back at me like a face I hadn't recognized in a long time. At the bottom of the document, I added one final line, centered and bold. This is not vengeance. This is memory. Then I saved it, encrypted it, emailed a copy to myself with the subject, Ledger of a Forgotten Daughter. I sat back in the hotel chair. A cold draft came from the air vent above. I pulled the blanket off the bed and wrapped it around my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I had just built something solid. Not a home, not a relationship, but a record. And that, for now, was enough. Monday morning came quietly. There was no storm, no scream, no glass shattering, Just sunlight creeping through my blinds, the kettle humming to life in the kitchen, and the thud of decision settling into my chest like a rock dropped in still water. I had made up my mind. After everything, being cut from the photo, the will, the speeches, I realized something terrifyingly simple. My absence didn't disrupt anything. But what if my presence disappeared from the parts they silently depended on? So I opened my laptop. The fan whirred softly. Familiar tabs auto-filled across my browser. The mortgage cosigner portal, the smart home dashboard for the Lakehouse, the shared password vault we'd used for years. I hadn't thought much about how interconnected everything had become. I'd just made it convenient, efficient, invisible. But today, I wasn't managing it. I was removing myself from it. Click. First, the cosigner tab. I navigated through the verification steps, uploaded a scanned copy of my ID, and submitted the form to remove myself as a financial guarantor on the Lakehouse. It wouldn't take effect immediately, but it would trigger a reassessment. Click Smart Home Hub, Reset Initiated. Devices unlinked. Access revoked. Click Shared Password Manager. I disabled family-wide access. Everyone's Hulu, Amazon Prime, church live stream logins, even the shared grocery account, disabled. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clear. I made tea, sat with the cup between my palms, and waited. It didn't take long. At 11:08 a.m., I got a text from Callista. Hey, weird question. Netflix is saying the password is wrong. Did we change it? 2 minutes later, another one. Also, I think Mom's TV won't connect. She says her Alexa's gone quiet? I didn't reply. 12 minutes later, Larson chimed in. The fridge won't talk to the app. Did something happen with the mesh network? Then a call from Vera. I let it ring. She followed up with a text. Junia, the water heater at the Lakehouse is ice cold. The plumber says the system reset. You changed something? I finally responded. I changed everything. She didn't reply after that. Around noon, the WhatsApp group titled Cray Family lit up like a pinball machine. Multiple missed calls. Voice notes. One from Uncle Ron asking why his Sunday church stream wasn't loading. Your dad's echo is saying the account's no longer valid. Another text read from Vera. What is going on? I finished my tea. Walked to my window and looked out over the street below. People walking dogs, riding bikes, laughing over coffee. The world moved on, completely unaware that a quiet revolution had started in a small Minneapolis apartment. It felt good. Not revenge good, but relief good. Like when you finally stop explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you. By late afternoon, the real unraveling began. Larson tried logging into the family calendar and was locked out. Callista tried updating the family grocery list and got an access denied error. Even Milton messaged, yes, Milton, asking if the Ring camera feed was supposed to be disconnected. I just want to feel safe, he said, like I had personally endangered him by removing the camera I installed for free. I opened the dashboard one final time. The admin panel blinked like a heartbeat, showing connected devices and user permissions. I hovered over my own name. Remove admin access? I clicked yes. A box popped up asking, add a message for future users? I typed slowly, deliberately. To those who only saw utility, consider this your first outage. Then I logged out. No fireworks, no applause, just a soft exhale and the low hum of my laptop cooling down. I stretched, grabbed my coat, and stepped outside to walk. The air smelled like autumn. Wood smoke, dry leaves, something fading but alive. I passed the neighborhood bakery, nodded at the owner through the glass, and kept going. My phone buzzed, but I didn't check it. I knew what would be waiting. I passed a mother scolding her son gently for dropping crumbs. Pick it up, honey. We don't just leave messes behind. The boy apologized and bent down. It struck me then. I'd been the one picking up after everyone for so long, I forgot what it felt like to stop. To leave the mess where it belonged, and walk away. Tuesday morning came with a chill, even though the forecast promised a mild September. I opened my window to air out the apartment, let in some quiet. It didn't last long. Around 9:20, I got a message from my cousin Nadine. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe a year if I was being honest. Heard you're going through something, she wrote. Hope you're okay. I blinked. Typed back. Define something. No response. I stared at the message for a while, half expecting dots to appear, those gray bubbles, dancing like a hesitant apology. But nothing. Silence again, as familiar as ever. By mid-morning, I'd received 3 more checking-in texts. Not warm, not curious, just thinly veiled probes, the kind people send when they're not sure if you're unraveling, or if they've been told you are. That same afternoon, my voicemail lit up. 2 missed calls. One was a junk number, the other was Aunt Cecily. I played it once, standing in the kitchen with my tea steeping. Then I played it again, sitting on the couch, and a third time, just to be sure I hadn't misheard her. Hi, sweetie, it's Cecily. I wanted to just, I guess, check in. Your mom mentioned you've been acting a little off lately. She said you've been snappy and isolating. I know things have been heavy. If you ever need someone to talk to. I stopped the message. I didn't delete it. I saved it. Then I created a folder on my desktop labeled Slander, Layer 1. That's how I knew this was no longer silence. This was strategy. And they had just made their move. I spent the next 2 hours sifting through old emails, backups, and access logs. Nothing dramatic, just collecting. My eyes burned, but I didn't blink much. Focus has a way of numbing you. Around 2 p.m., I remembered an old Dropbox account we used back when we were coordinating the Lakehouse renovation. I still had the login from a temp Gmail I used for organizing the church directory in 2019. I held my breath as the login loaded. If it worked, I'd see everything they thought I'd forgotten. And it did. There were dozens of folders, mostly labeled by seasons. Summer updates, Christmas budget, roof repairs 2020. But one folder caught my eye. Family support, private. Inside, a single PDF. Concern, Junia.pdf. I didn't open it right away. I stared at the file name, read it 3 times. My name, formal and clinical, next to the word concern made my stomach twist. I clicked. It opened in preview. The document was clean, well-written, structured like a note from a counselor or church elder. Neutral fonts, no emotional punctuation. But the words? Cold. Over the past several months, there have been noticeable changes in Junia's behavior. Reports of emotional withdrawal, sporadic communication, and verbal outbursts have raised concerns regarding her mental and emotional stability. I kept reading. While we acknowledge past contributions, the current pattern is alarming. It may be necessary to consider an informal intervention, with family present, to address concerns and ensure Junia's well-being and the safety of family interactions. Beneath the closing paragraph were 2 names, Vera Cray Larson, Cray. No Callista, no Milton, just the mother who raised me and the brother who inherited everything I paid for. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I clicked download and saved it to the same folder as Cecily's voicemail. They weren't just questioning me, they were building a case against me. For what? To justify keeping me out of the will? To explain why I was no longer invited to Sunday brunch? To silence me before I ever got loud. I stood from my chair, stretched my shoulders, and walked to the bathroom. Washed my face. Cold water. No towels thrown. No yelling into the mirror. Just clarity. Then I grabbed my phone, opened my contacts, and scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in nearly 8 years. Elena Morales. Back in 2015, Elena helped me review a contract dispute when I did freelance IT work for a private security firm. She was sharp, fast, and unflinchingly precise. I hit call. She picked up after the second ring. Junia? Elena, I think I'm going to need some help. Her tone shifted. What's going on? It's family, I said. But not in the way people mean when they say it like a soap opera. It's strategic, quiet. They're building a file on me. There was a beat of silence. Okay, she said. What kind of help are you looking for? Documentation services, witness preservation, chain of communication, just in case this gets worse before it gets better. Understood. Do you have digital evidence already? Yes, and I'm not looking to go public, yet. I just want to be prepared if they try to make me look like the unstable one. Her voice sharpened. You're not the first client who's needed that kind of protection. Let's meet Wednesday. My office? Noon. I thanked her. Hung up, then sat back down at my desk. Everything in me wanted to scream, to call Vera and say, You think I'm unstable? I've been holding this family together with duct tape and prayers. But I didn't. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was building my own. After I hung up with Elena, I didn't feel fear. What I felt was precision. In the past, confrontation had always come wearing chaos, shouting matches, slam doors, vague threats covered in syrupy tones. But this would be clean, legal, controlled. We met the following Thursday in her office, a spare room above a quiet law practice in downtown Duluth, just 2 blocks from the courthouse. It smelled like printer ink and brewed coffee, no family portraits on the desk, no inspirational quotes on the walls, just case files, computers, and facts, exactly the kind of environment where truth didn't have to beg for attention. Elena had already drawn up the documents. She was quick like that. I reviewed the loan withdrawal notice first. It confirmed I was no longer responsible for the Lakehouse mortgage, a property I had co-signed in good faith when Mom said, just in case something happens to Dad, it helps us qualify. Back then, it felt like trust. Now, I saw it for what it was, leverage. I signed it. Next, the asset reimbursement request. This one was harder to look at, not because it was wrong, but because it was so thorough. She'd itemized everything from the dock repairs to the security system I installed, the water filtration unit, even the new subflooring in the guest room that Vera claimed was a splurge, but somehow needed after a pipe burst during a winter. They left the house vacant. $48,900 total. Not inflated, not exaggerated, documented. I slid the USB across the desk. Proof of every dollar, with receipts. Elena nodded once like a judge finalizing a ruling. I'll have it filed and delivered by end of day, she said. You'll receive digital confirmation, and they'll receive notice by mail and email. When I left the office, the fall air hit me like a new beginning. The sun was setting behind the courthouse roof, casting a golden haze across the sidewalk. I zipped my jacket and walked slowly to my car, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like to finally stop asking for permission to be treated fairly. By Saturday afternoon, the system kicked in. I was back in Minneapolis on my couch with a book in my lap when my phone buzzed. Notification. Co-signer removed. Mortgage flagged for reassessment. Notification. Legal demand delivered. Reimbursement requested. At 6:12 p.m., Vera texted. Loan status changed. What is this? Are you trying to sabotage us? I didn't reply. At 6:27, a follow-up. We need to talk. I didn't raise you to be vindictive. Funny, I hadn't raised her to be manipulative either. I put my phone down. At 7:40 p.m., I received a ping from my bank that the reimbursement invoice had been viewed. Sunday morning, I woke up to a blinking screen. The Cray family group chat had exploded. Vera, this is outrageous. You're turning against your own family over money? Larson, sis, please, don't do this. You know we've had a rough couple years. Callista, this isn't like you. We're family. I stared at that word, capitalized like it was a brand, not a relationship. I typed, slowly, letting each word settle like bricks. Then why did I always pay like a stranger? For 10 minutes, no one responded. Then it started. Dad, call me, call me, call me. Callista, the kids are confused. They miss you. Vera, what are you trying to prove? I muted the thread. I didn't need more proof. I already had it. They never saw the labor I gave. They saw the convenience I provided. And now that it was gone, they weren't mourning me. They were mourning the loss of control. By noon, the chat was quiet, just the occasional typing bubble, then retreat. At 3:18 p.m., Vera left the group. 3 minutes later, Larson renamed it Family, Emergency Only. I wasn't added back. That night, I lit a candle, not out of grief, but ceremony. I opened my laptop again, refreshed the dashboard, updated my local records, took screenshots, archived the paper trail. Every step they took in response would be saved. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about preservation. I had spent most of my adult life as their fallback plan. The fixer. The plug that held the dam. And now, as the water rushed out, they scrambled to find another sandbag. But they were too late. At 5:42 p.m., I received an email from Elena. All filings confirmed, delivery complete. Next step is up to them. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just closed my laptop and sat still, breathing in the moment. For the first time in years, they couldn't reach me through guilt, obligation, or silence. They had tried to erase me with words. I responded with action. By Monday morning, I had already sorted the files into labeled folders on my desktop. No flashy names. Just plain, clinical truth. Receipts, audio evidence, legal notices, archived conversations. Each one a quiet record of things people thought I'd forget. Things they counted on me never bringing up. It was a bright day outside, ironic, given what I was about to do. I sat at my dining table with a cup of black coffee, phone in one hand, and mouse in the other. The cursor hovered over the blue post button on Facebook. I'd written and rewritten the caption at least 3 times the night before, but by now it was settled. I clicked once to upload the images, then again to embed the audio. The attachments appeared in order. Screenshot of the concerned Junia PDF, Vera's name right there beside Larson's. An audio clip of Aunt Cecily's hesitant voicemail. Your mom said you've been off. A photo of the tea set receipt, time-stamped, signed. My credit card statement highlighting the dock repairs. The email confirming I paid for the Lakehouse's smart system upgrade. I didn't tag anyone. No hashtags. No dramatics. Just a caption. For those asking why I went quiet, here's what silence was covering. I hit post. Then I stood up, stretched my legs, poured another cup of coffee, and waited. The first like came from Marcy, someone I barely knew, but who worked with me back in 2013. Then came 2 more from old high school classmates, then 5, then 30, then 100. By lunchtime, the post had been shared over 200 times. The comments started rolling in. We always wondered why you weren't in the pictures. I'm so sorry. This makes me sick. You didn't deserve any of this. I remember your mom from church. I used to think she was a saint. My God. Some were distant relatives I hadn't heard from since Grandma's funeral. Others were friends of friends. A few were complete strangers, women who said they saw themselves in every word. And then came the direct messages. A cousin in Arizona wrote, I had no idea. I wish I had asked more questions. Another message from someone I didn't recognize said, I'm the tech daughter too. You're not alone. I sat back, stunned, not at the reactions, but at the collective exhale I felt through the screen, like my truth had made room for theirs. By early evening, I started hearing murmurs of fallout. A friend who still attended Vera's church messaged me, Your mom's not in the group thread anymore. Someone asked about your post, and she logged out without responding. That same hour, Vera's Facebook profile disappeared. Callista's Instagram went dark. Every curated picture of smiling brunches and holiday baking gone, just blank silence. Larson changed his LinkedIn profile. He removed the title Cray Family Holdings and replaced it with Independent Consultant. That told me everything I needed to know. He was scrambling to separate himself from the damage. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't comment. I didn't post again. Until the next morning. Around 7:45, after my second cup of coffee, I uploaded one final file. The PDF was called Ledger of a Forgotten Daughter. The title page was simple. This is what I gave. This is what they took. This is what they erased. I'm not erasing myself anymore. Inside was every dollar, every receipt, every line item with a note. Not reimbursed, not acknowledged. I even included the dates I was excluded from family events, the Christmas I slept on a couch, the birthday no one called about, the lake house weekend where they forgot I existed. I didn't tag anyone in this post either. It didn't need theatrics. It needed light. Within an hour, it had over 300 shares. Comments flowed in from strangers across the country. A retired librarian in Michigan wrote, "You just put words to a lifetime I've lived but never said out loud." Another woman, a single mother in Ohio, messaged, "They always said I was lucky to be so helpful. No one asked how much it cost me." I didn't cry. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was release. At 4:12 p.m., someone commented under the original post, "So, you were the one holding the whole thing together all along." I stared at that comment for a full minute. I didn't reply, not because I didn't have something to say, but because I already had. My whole life, they treated me like an extra pair of hands, a spare battery, a dependable ghost. But the moment I stopped performing, the whole system flickered. And now, with the receipts out in the world, the illusion wasn't just cracked, it was gone. The drive up to Duluth was quiet. It always had been, but this time, the silence felt different. It wasn't tense. It wasn't loaded with dread or the usual, "what now?" kind of energy. It was just quiet, still, like the inside of my chest had stopped ringing. It had been exactly 1 month since the post, since the receipts, since everything changed and nothing was said. I hadn't heard from anyone in my family directly. No calls, no apologies, not even a cheap "you misunderstood" message. Just quiet. But I had heard from hundreds of other people. Women I'd never met. A retired nurse in Vermont who said her siblings still expected her to do their taxes for free. A former social worker from San Diego who spent 30 years being called the dependable one, while her younger sister inherited their parents' beach house. A widow in Wisconsin who sent a message that simply read, "You put words to what I thought I'd take to the grave." And those voices, those women, were louder, braver, and more healing than anything Vera ever offered me in all my adult life. I didn't come back to fight. I didn't come for closure. I came to end it properly. When I pulled into the Lakehouse driveway, it was just after noon. The sun was high. The wind off the lake tugged gently at my coat as I stepped out. No one was home. I had made sure of that. I'd called the caretaker to ask when he last stopped by. No visits for days. The key still worked. I wasn't surprised. Vera never remembered to change locks. She preferred to leave things looking secure rather than actually being secure, just like everything else. Inside, the house was clean, sanitized, staged like a real estate brochure, throw pillows arranged perfectly, the throw blanket folded over the back of the couch just so. The espresso machine I'd bought still sat on the counter. The one she claimed made her feel like someone finally saw her. She hadn't even moved it. I walked slowly through the rooms, not to inspect, just to witness. The smart faucet I installed, still dripping, ironically. The upgraded light switch panels I'd wired myself, complete with dimmers for ambience. The guest room ceiling, once water-stained and cracked, now pristine because I paid for the drywall and repainting. I ran my fingers over the edge of the fridge. Stainless steel, fingerprint-resistant, paid in full by me, with a holiday bonus I once thought might go toward a trip to Italy. That trip never happened. "This was never home," I whispered. It wasn't even nostalgia I felt. It was recognition of labor. Unpaid, unseen, assumed. Just before I walked out, I unplugged the old router I'd gifted them 3 Christmases ago. It buzzed once as it powered down, like it too was saying goodbye. On the drive back to Minneapolis, I didn't take the highway. I took the scenic route, letting the lake follow me along the right side for miles, like a quiet companion. I stopped once to stretch my legs and check email. One new message. From Vera. Subject line, "Family is forever." The message was short. "You went too far, but I still love you. We can still fix this." No apology, no accountability, just a guilt-wrapped invitation to return to my place. I didn't respond. I didn't even mark it as read. I simply dragged it into a folder called "For the Record" and archived it, like everything else. That evening, back in my apartment, I pulled out 3 large boxes I'd packed over the past week: routers, smart locks, security cameras, devices I had purchased over the years and never truly given, just loaned without permission. I had reached out to a shelter in St. Paul that provided training for single mothers in tech support. They were thrilled to accept the equipment. A volunteer would arrive tomorrow morning to pick it up. I sealed the boxes, labeled them, and placed them by the door. Then I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had thought about what to do with the money I'd set aside, the refund from overpayments, the tax write-offs, and a check from the city for assisting with a public access project on broadband. That night, I filled out the paperwork to start a scholarship. It wouldn't be in my name. It would be named after my maternal grandmother, Evelyn Sayers, a woman who once gave up a college education to raise her siblings when her parents died in a barn fire. Vera had always dismissed her mother as too soft, but I remembered Evelyn's hands, calloused but gentle, rough but warm. The scholarship would go to girls in STEM, not the top of their class, not the ones with the most polished resumes, the ones quietly holding their families together, the ones who fixed the printer, paid the internet bill, stayed up to help a younger sibling finish a paper, all without being asked, the ones people forgot to thank. This, I whispered, clicking submit, is the kind of inheritance worth leaving. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. The next morning, I made one final stop. I returned to the lake house before sunrise. The air was crisp, the dock still wet with morning dew. I walked slowly to the edge, the keys to the house cold in my palm. I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of pine, damp earth, and something faintly metallic. Not anger, not sadness, just air, just space. I looked down at the water. The surface was calm, still. Then I opened my hand and let the keys drop. They sank quickly, without resistance, and I turned and walked away. They took me for granted, but I finally took myself back. In the end, it wasn't about the lake house or the money. It was about reclaiming the worth they'd tried to erase. Sometimes, walking away is the loudest thing you can do. Have you ever had to cut ties with family to protect your peace? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful family stories like this one.